Good afternoon.
Hi.
Hi.
We're all together.
We're
in a room together.
So now you get all of us giggling at each other. So we're here to talk about what today, Jacob?
We're going to talk about needles. So obviously there's a ton of them out there. So
we could talk for hours on it, but we're going to give you the lowdown. The first and foremost, what would be your one hint about needles that you would give absolutely everybody on this face of the planet?
Change your needle. Change your needles. They're really cheap. And to be honest, a lot of times if you're having tension issues, if your embroidery is looping funny, if your stitches aren't forming right on your domestic machine, the whole issue is you have an old needle. Change your needles.
And what did you just learn too?
Yeah, so I actually just heard that a needle is part of your recipe for success.
Yes.
So if you have a bad needle or an old needle, you're probably not going to be very successful with whatever you're sewing on. So just change it. Like Angela said, change it regularly.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that was said to me yesterday in my showroom was that I have another maintenance tech in my showroom, and she said, I've seen a lot less issues with our long arms since I've enforced changing needles. She is responsible for making sure that all of the long arms in the showroom stay working. Mm-hmm. And I found out that some of the employees were like, oh, well, the needle hasn't been used that much because it was a donation quilt. So
that much.
Yeah. So we're going to leave it in. And we were breaking a lot of needles. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so there's an impact that happens to the back of a long arm needle every time you take a stitch. So it weakens the needle because it's actually flexing the needle. It's designed to do that, guys. So it's actually getting weaker as you're using it. Eventually it's going to break because it's getting weaker. So it made complete sense that I'm just looking at her going, well, of course you want to change your needles so they don't break. But I had never communicated it. So my fault.
No. Yeah. It's a thing, I think, we sewers, quilters, crafters try to make the absolute most out of every ounce of fabric, whatever there is. So we want to get the best life out of our needles, right?
Right.
So, but you just spent X amount of dollars, anywhere from a couple $100s to several thousands of dollars for the sewing machine. And the magic happens because of the needle and the hook area.
Yeah. So can be looking at upwards of $40,000 for a long arm.
Yes.
So, and you're looking at $795, I think it is, for 10 needles for a long arm. Why would you want to save something that makes it 79 cents, people? That 79-cent part, less than $1. I'm going to use it until it breaks.
Right.
If it could actually hurt my $30,000 to $40,000 long arm,
right?
Or my domestic machine, because let's be honest, my domestic machine is over $10,000 that I have, so I need to protect it too. And even if you only had a $200 domestic machine, right, or you have your grandmother's domestic machine, mm-hmm, you still need to protect them, because if not, it's going to be in for repairs. It's going to cost you more than 80 cents.
Good point. Good point. More than 80 cents.
A needle is pretty inexpensive to a major repair for a machine. So something easy to do and inexpensive, especially when you're talking about you just spent thousands of dollars on that long arm or that combo machine or whatever.
Mm-hmm. So when I first got my embroidery machine, I did not know I needed to use a different type of needle when I was embroidering. Mm-hmm. Didn't know it. So I put the embroidery on and I started stitching and got to buy a new shuttle and the new hook thing for your embroidery machine, because when the needle came down in the wrong position, it stuck into the little plastic shuttle, the bobbin case. Yeah, I guess that's what they're called, in the drop-in bobbin.
Yeah.
So, and I
ask Jake how he knows.
I couldn't get it out.
She's going to learn real soon when she goes to Elna training.
Yeah. So, and the funny thing is, I have a Janome, and I called my Janome dealer and told her what happened. And she started laughing at me. She goes, "You did what?" She goes, "I did it during COVID." and everybody was shut down. So I literally had to order one off of Amazon to get, she didn't have any. I had to order one off of Amazon.
Right. Well,
Also didn't know I was supposed to change to an embroidery bobbin case.
right.
You need to know your machine.
Yeah.
Read your manual. It's really good. One of the things we're going to talk about that. Do we want to talk about the anatomy of a needle?
Sure.
Sure.
So,
Are we going to be able to see the needle?
well, we can kind of show a little bit, I
You need
think,
to
right?
get one of those like
Big, gigantic
Yeah, I
ones.
don't have a giant needle to show you.
We can get close to the
We're going
screen.
to have Daddy Long Arms put it up there for us.
Right.
Okay, so he's showing you the top of the needle right now, right? The part that you would stick up in your machine.
Correct.
And this is an MR needle. So the top of the needle is completely round on the top. It doesn't have a flat spot on it because for long arms, we want to be able to tweak the position of the eye of our needle. So ours actually do not have little flat spots on them so that when you put them in,
Good.
you can rotate them. Yeah, you don't have to keep it up the forever. I could make them though. What do you think?
I think that'd be funny.
Yeah, really. And then the bottom of our needles, yeah, you can't see it.
Yeah.
He might need to put his hand behind it to get it.
Stand up.
Yeah, once you
get
stand
close in there.
He's going to come around to the back.
He's going to go around the back.
So we're going to make him work today. And then we're going to tell him he's not doing it right.
Here, let's put it with the purple phone case so people can see. There we go.
Yeah, they still can't see.
All
so
right.
this may not be a good one.
Right.
But we're going to keep going because,
We'll keep talking about the bottom part of the needle. You guys can all
so my
see.
needle goes down, right? And if this is the point of my needle, on a long arm needle, you've got a bend, right? So the bend of the needle goes away from you and the little part that sticks out goes towards you. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that bend in the back of your needle is called a scarf.
Cool.
Okay.
Yep.
The scarf of the needle in a long arm, when the point comes across, it actually grabs the thread off the back of the scarf of the needle and it needs to be able to clear between the thread and the needle. So as it's coming around and it bumps the back of your needle, it actually pushes the needle out of the way, grabs the thread and keeps going around the hook. So that's why at least APQS long arms, the one that
yes.
I know, uses scarf so that it can flex that needle towards me and get my thread.
Mhm.
So how does it work on a domestic machine since that's not my forte?
So it actually works very similar. You still have, the shank, the top part, you still have your scarf. On a domestic machine, the scarf isn't as maybe deep per se.
Okay.
And ladder to how APQS does it, you don't necessarily want the hook deflecting the needle. But yeah, same principle. That hook's got to meet that scarf area because as it's coming up through the fabric, it's actually creating a loop. So the hook can grab that top thread. That's why there's certain distances that the needle has to travel before the hook meets the needle.
So are the hook points, are they part of the bobbin case then? Or is it coming in underneath the bobbin case?
So on a domestic machine, you have a couple different systems. So you actually have a rotary system, which is a top loading bobbin.
Mm-hmm.
So that hook actually rotates horizontally underneath your bobbin case. And it's always going in a full circle. So that's why it's called a rotary.
Okay.
But then you have your front loading bobbins like Bernina or some other mechanical machines. Those are oscillating hook. So they do the same thing, but they never go in a complete revolution. They just kind of go to the left. And then as they're coming back to the right, catch the thread, but they never make a complete revolution. They kind of just oscillate is what it's called. So,
are you excited about your training?
But yeah, so it's the same principles as the long arm, just kind of a different system. The MR needle we use with the APQS long arms, I believe, is a stronger needle for one that they use it, and it has that deeper scarf. So the front of the needle actually bumps out. On a 134 non-MR needle, it does not bump out. So the integrity is actually taken away because they shave the scarf out. Whereas on the MR needle, because it bumps out, you have the same thickness the whole way through.
So we would be using more, the little needle hole on your hook, we would be using more of that because ours bumps out. It would be getting closer to the front of that.
You can
as
time
well.
it closer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
And then, of course, you have a groove that runs up the needle as well. And that's for the thread to sit in as it's creating the stitch.
Well, that would be true of all universal needles.
Right.
All needles.
Not just,
Mhm.
not just, well, I think they make some that aren't universal and don't carry the thread, don't they? There are needles that are made that don't.
A ton of needles.
Yeah, there's a ton of needles. So if
Almost as much as thread.
yeah, so that channel protects the thread, right? Because you're flossing the eye as the thread's going through. So the whole idea of that channel is to protect the thread. And when you're sizing thread to go through a needle, because that's what we're actually trying to do, is get the size of the thread to match the size of our needle hole, right? You want it to fit in that little channel. So if your thread is way too big to fit in that channel, it can't protect the thread, and you'll have more thread breakage.
Right. If you also want the eye of the needle to be big enough as well.
Right. You also don't want it to be too big, though, because if it's too big, it's like using silk thread with a huge eye. I'm once again just going to shred it because that thread just going to get sloppy all inside that eye.
Right.
Right. So yeah,
it travels a lot in that little space.
It goes back and forth a lot through the space. So yeah.
Lots of different types of needles. So determine what you're working on for which needle you need. So if you're sewing jeans, you need a denim needle. If you're sewing leather, you need a leather needle. They all have different points to get through that fabric or those fibers to do different things. Ballpoint, they have twin needles even for domestic machines. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Right.
Embroidery needles.
Embroidery, they have anti-glue needles for embroidery as well. So if you're sewing through, so if you're sewing through, if you use like a spray adhesive to hold it together, or even just that friction of the needle, the glue will start to stick on it.
Yeah.
And so they actually make anti-glue ones to prevent that, so you'd have less problems because that glue.
Where have you been on my sewing life? Oh my word!
Because that glue can cause issues.
Yes, it can.
Yeah, it can. Yeah, it can on machines that don't have those fancy needles too.
And most brands make an anti-glue now, so Oregon, Schmitz.
I don't know that Gressbecker does in long arm needles, so.
Long arm, I'm not sure on that one.
Yeah, that would be interesting because you're still going to be going through any adhesive that your customer's using on their quilt. And I have gone through 20 needles on one quilt before because of the nasty gooey stuff.
Yeah, they spray base it or something like that.
No, they used Heat and Bond Ultra, which you shouldn't be sewing through, but I did. Because a long arm can do it. It's strong enough.
Because there's no quilting police.
There's no quilting police. And I just changed my needle off. And I was wiping it down with alcohol, trying to get the goo off of it. And it worked a little bit. I mean, I got through one like little football shape.
You'd probably have to do it pretty regularly.
Yeah, I was replacing a needle every football shape. It was bad.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Maybe they do. We'll have to check into that.
Yeah. Now I'm going to have questions.
Gressbecker, if you're listening.
Yeah. Coming to Rock Hill tomorrow to check out your needle. I'm sorry.
So is there any particular point on this needle that's the weakest point? If there was going to be a weak point?
Well, yeah, where it's bent. So when it breaks, it usually knocks the tip right off of it.
Yeah, or
on this one.
Right. Or on the shaft here, right up here.
Oh, true.
Right. That's why we don't like for the APQS machines that we do. I don't even think, the titanium dip needles are interesting.
Ask Angela about that. I mean, I'm not a fan of them.
Well, I'm not either because they break with a longer shaft. So typically when you break a steel needle, you are going to break up where Cathy was talking about, way up here on this needle. When you break with a titanium, it's usually going to knock just the tip off. And then it's going to go down really long, back down into your hook. And part of the reason, for stitch quality reasons, APQS keeps their hooks very, very close up to their needle plates, much closer than other brands do. And that's one of the reasons APQS suggests that we don't use titanium needles, is because when it breaks, it's long and it has a bigger chance of getting stuck down in the hook.
Yeah, I just figured, titanium, it's stronger. But what does that mean? It breaks harder.
It breaks harder. It costs more. And if I'm changing my needles, I'm spending more on needles.
Right.
Have I used them before? I actually have used one in my long arm before. I found out because I opened up a little pack of titaniums I had at one point and some were missing. So I know I used them. I don't know when. I didn't have a problem because I would have known immediately if I had a problem and had a broken gold needle in my machine. But I have used them in my older domestic machines. I don't use them in my new one though. my
No.
newer one. The one that my embroidery all-in-one, I'm afraid I would do something and hurt that one. And once again, it cost as much as a long arm. So
Right. So again, a titanium needle would have extra cost to it, and you
Mhm.
think you could use it longer, which means the tip is going to dull.
Yeah, you're gonna weak. It's gonna get weak, right? Because it's when they dip those titanium needles, they dip them all the way up the shaft. There's usually silver on the very top of the needle, and they dip them up this little angled part right here. That's the first dip, and then they dip it just up the scarf, and then just the tip, like right to the middle of the eye. So where it breaks is that last dip point.
Oh yeah.
So it's really, really long. And they are dipped 3 times now, and they're not all gold anymore. So don't think, oh, my needle's silver, so it's not titanium. It could still be titanium.
Right.
Yeah.
So, just a suggestion. You don't have to follow what we say. We're not going to be quilting police in your room.
Yeah, I mean, I know people that use them and love them.
Yeah.
It's just my opinion.
Yeah, and it's just my opinion.
Right.
Yeah, I just think
Not even gonna
Should we caveat and have a just the Quirky Quilters opinions across here?
Hey, we all agree on something.
Wow.
Doesn't always happen, guys, really.
Yeah, I mean, I just think if it's gonna, it's stronger, but if it breaks harder, you have a higher chance of really damaging something. That's the kind of way I look at it, I guess.
Yeah, I agree.
And who wants a big repair bill?
Right. Right.
Not from a needle. No, you're an 80-cent. If you're less than $1 in my life, you don't need to cause any problems in my life. You just need to work.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But we try to, in our store, keep our machine needles, just like our bobbins, go with a particular machine. So if our APQS have bobbins, we have the APQS bobbins. And if our Jukis have an L bobbin, the same as our APQS, we still give them the Juki bobbin. And we have our Baby Lock now and our Janome ones. So we make sure we give them the right. Yeah. And that's going to be the same with this.
So L bobbins are theoretically all the same, but they're not.
No, there's different weights and different people manufacture and test things differently.
Different quality. And then your machine has been tested on the bobbin that your company is selling. Mm-hmm. And you're looking at another part that's, in my case, I use L bobbins, $1.
Minuscule price, yes.
Yeah. So I'm just going to buy another bobbin from APQS because it's $1 and it's okay. Yes. You see where my tolerance is, guys, right? And I buy my Elna bobbins and my Janome bobbins from Janome Elna, right?
Right.
I buy the ones for my mom's brother machine from Brother, right? So she has a Viking machine or a Husqvarna machine, right? So we buy those bobbins from Husqvarna. So, and we keep them all separate. Mm-hmm. And then we have the ones for our singers that we never put with anything because Lord help you if you lose your singer featherweight bobbins or bobbin canes. It's a really bad thing. So yeah.
But needles, again, let's not get attached to one needle. Just, make sure you change those needles because that's where all the magic happens, like recipe.
Not just one physical needle, but one size of needle, one type of needle.
Right. There's all those point types. So
yeah, you need to have needles in your system or in your stash that are different sizes for different sizes of thread. Or if you're going to be doing leather, you need to have a leather needle. If you're going to be doing pre-printed fabrics, you might want to have some ballpoint needles in your stash, right? So
yes, ballpoints are really great for pre-printed.
Oh yeah.
More and more fabrics are becoming pre-printed. Why do we like those ballpoints on the pre-printed?
Because they move the fabric, but they don't actually make the big white streaks up the fabric most of the time. Mm-hmm. You're still going to have sometimes when it does happen, but it won't happen most of the times.
Well, and I'm going to just give a shout out for printed fabrics instead of for digital fabrics, because there's more flexibility for us store owners to get fabrics longer if they're better selling when they're digital.
Yeah.
So that's not all bad to go, digital, or the old way. They're making huge strides in the digital world, even on Cuddle and Minky and fabrics like that. They're making we got a beautiful Eagle Cuddle quilt in our store that is phenomenally digitally printed. Yeah. So
So digital printing is getting much better.
Yes.
It is.
Oh, yeah.
And consumers are driving that. I mean,
Mhm.
there's a lot of consumers like, I don't want digital prints. The problem is the way we purchase fabric is driving the need for fabric companies to do digital fabric, because they don't have to print as many hundreds of thousands of yards of a single fabric to have it be able to be printed. So, and they can do more colorways for us. And we all want new shiny things. And we want, a yard of it. We don't want 5 yards of fabric for most fabric anymore.
No.
So the way that we purchase fabrics is the reason that digital fabrics are becoming a thing.
Plus the technology there, and they're using that technology
It's-
for sure.
Oh yeah, but
Yeah.
it's more expensive for them to print it per yard
Right.
than it is to run it in a normal run per yard. The
Right.
problem is they have to run a lot more of it.
Well, I can tell you from personal experience, Jacob and I, because we are in Chief Nation or Swift Nation, if you want to say it. And I was showing my husband, I said, remember the whole Kelsey thing where he was up and he took his shirt off? I said, look, Doug, it's on fabric. And he's like, what? That just happened last week. I'm like, it's on fabric. So we ordered Super Bowl champ fabric, dark 30 Monday morning, because they had it out. And we have it, I think it came into the store today. So that is less than a week.
Yeah.
So I'm in love with that.
On demand printing.
Right.
At least you didn't have to buy both. I mean, think about it. They have to print the T-shirts and the hats for both the winner and the loser as if they won.
Right.
Because they don't know who's going to win the Super Bowl. Can you imagine all those T-shirts and hats? And those guys don't want to wear those hats if they didn't win.
Oh, no. No. So, but I had talked to the company beforehand saying, well, if Kansas City wins, right? And she goes, oh, we're prepared. We have designs already. And we will start printing first thing Monday morning, if not Sunday night. I think they probably had people ready to go because they printed it straight in Kansas City, which is also beautiful because it's American made, right?
And it's super soft.
Yes.
That is way cool.
It is pretty crazy to even think about.
Do they have Taylor on some of them? No.
Well, they have references to, but they can't.
They can't. I'm just teasing.
they cannot. They do have the 13. They have hands doing a heart.
Oh yeah.
13.
And this is 13, which is Taylor Swift, which everybody. Then I had to explain to everybody in the store. She was born on the 13th. She turned 13th on the Friday the 13th, and her first album went whatever magical number on the 13th in 13 weeks. So 13 is like her number. So they have 13 and 87. So yeah, it's super. So the Swiftie people will understand.
Well, if you add 13 and 87, you get 100. Therefore, it's perfect.
Oh, did not think of that one. Should we still? Maybe that's a Taylor Swift, Kelsey. If they're going to get married, 37 plus 87 plus 13 is. Oh wow!
She didn't know that one. They're doing all those numbers. The Swifties are doing all those numbers.
Oh, okay.
I didn't come up with that one. I already knew that.
Okay. That's fabulous. I've been working. So that's good. So again, ballpoint with the new digital prints, you're going to absolutely love.
We didn't derail at all.
Circle back. I'm going to try to unsquirrel us back to the topic of needles. So, and always have extra on hand. So when you're at the store, make sure before you check out if you're buying fabric, hopefully your quilt store is doing you a great honor and saying, hey, do you need needles or some batting or some other things? And say, oh yeah, I need needles. They're doing that for a reason. They want you to be able, we want you as we serve our customers to make sure you can go home and just keep on quilting because that's what it's about.
Recipe of success.
Look at that recipe of success.
Thank you, Linda.
So with that, I don't know if we, lessons learned, just to recap, change your needle often. What's that often mean? Probably every 8 hours on your domestic machine. And I would say every quilt on your long arm.
Yeah, I do it every quilt on my long arm.
Yeah.
I build it into my pricing for my customer quilting and, just keep going. It's not hard to build 80 cents into something.
Right.
But what if I'm doing a small quilt, like a wall hanging?
Well, Here's the
It's a
thing, right?
question that I get.
Question: are you doing another small one right after it?
I don't know.
Like, I don't know.
Right.
Okay, but if you don't know, I would change it so that it's
Right.
ready for the next project. If I know I'm doing a baby quilt followed by a baby quilt, and it's going to be less than 8 hours, I might do that. But I'm not going to leave the needle in and then all of a sudden do a king size quilt the next day.
Right.
Because then I'm not, it's, you know what I'm saying? So just know what you're doing next. And
remember, needles are usually less than $1.
they're less than a dollar.
Yeah. So we're not going to get all upset about $1 because you have a very expensive machine, whether it's a small machine, whatever your machine is, it's priceless. Your machine is priceless. So take care of that priceless machine and make it last for a very long time. Right?
I agree.
Yeah. That's what we want to see. We want to see you sewing, we want to see you quilting, and we want to see you enjoying that machine. So part of that recipe, as Jake said, is a good needle.
Yeah. And we don't want you to see you not quilting or not sewing because the machine's in getting maintenance because you didn't change a $1 part.
Right. With that, go change your needle. Okay, that's the first thing you're going to do. Make sure you buy some the next time you go to the store. Change your needle. And most of all, enjoy and happy sewing. Thanks, guys.
Bye.